Well, good morning. My name is Corey. I'm one of the pastors here. I'm actually the associate pastor. Pastor Ken is in Nashville, Tennessee. At a leadership conference this morning, this week. So wish him well. Pray for safe travel and a good time away with his bride. I want to touch base on something, and over this last week, came into question about why we do some of the things we do here. And it's because we love football, right? And we love the Seahawks in particular. And woo! Let me see the Seahawks fans in here. Okay, there's a few of us. I'm from, that'll be decided today. I'm from Washington, so, I was born. Well, no, I was 7 when they became a team, so I wasn't quite born a Seahawks fan. But no, back to why we do what we do. We firmly believe here at Word of Life that everybody on this planet will live forever somewhere. That everybody on this planet will live forever somewhere. And that to show people the love of Jesus, we have to do what nobody else is doing. You see, there's a lot of churches, wonderful churches out there for church people. For church people. Where do the unchurched people have a place to go to hear about Jesus, about his love? Sometimes, some places, some cities, nowhere. So we want to become that. Because we believe that everybody will live forever somewhere. Anybody want football? Oh, I knew they weren't going to throw very good. Let me try this better. No, sorry. Now you can go back and say, that church tried to kill me. They say they love people, but I don't believe it. Super Bowl Sunday, we're going to do something different and new. We're not going to preach. We're going to show a 30-minute video of what Megan explained, of NFL players. They tell us there will be actual players from the teams that be in the Super Bowl. We'll see. But it's a great opportunity to let somebody that wouldn't normally come to church, give them a reason to come. Give them a reason to come. We'll have a popcorn machine going. We'll have more footballs to attack you with. And we're just going to have a good time. And let people know that church people know how to have fun. But Jesus doesn't make you boring. So, all right. Well, we are in Acts. We're in Acts chapter 24. Now, if you have a Bible, you can turn there. And today we'll do a little investigation into why Paul, who this particular chapter is kind of telling his journey, his life story at this point in our book. The book of Acts, for those of you who don't know, is the story of the early church, how it got started. The last half of it kind of zeroes in on the Apostle Paul. This is going to kill me, I know it. It zeroes in on the Apostle Paul and his life and his journey and his work. And so that's kind of where we're at if you're coming to us brand new. So I have a lot of questions about why Paul did what he did in this chapter. Before I get to that, I want to talk to you about belief. About belief. See, I believe in a lot of things. I was thinking about that this week. I believe in a lot of things. I believe overeating is bad. But 2 nights ago, I overate. And then did it again. I believe that talking on my cell phone while driving is bad. But yesterday, I did it. And I did it the week before. Try not to text. I tell you what, that texting and driving is bad. Texting and driving is terrible. Talking and driving is bad. So I do the bad, not the terrible. But I believe it to be a bad thing to do, but I still do it. I believe the president is the leader of our country. Do you? Is the president the leader of our country? Yeah, he is. By virtue of his office, he's the leader of our country. Would I follow him anywhere? And I'm not just picking on a Democrat. I wouldn't have followed Bush anywhere either. But yet I believe him to be the leader of our country by virtue of his office. I believe that my wife is one of the best things that ever happened to me. But I still get mad at her. Friday night, I went to bed so irritated at her. It wasn't her fault, completely. I just was. Do I know that's not right? Yes. Do I firmly believe she's the best thing that ever happened to me? Yes. We've been married 26 and a half years. And I tell you what, the last year has been the best year of 26. The guys that are down in the thinking of throwing in the towel at the 5-year mark, which we were in counseling, our marriage was on the rocks at year 5. All I got to tell you is thank God that we didn't throw in the towel. So I believe she is the best thing that ever happened to me. But I don't always act on it. I don't always live that out. Why not? Maybe you're in here this morning. Maybe you're new with us. Maybe you were drugged in here by a relative, a friend. I see here's some laughing, so that maybe is the case. And they had no idea what I was going to talk about, so please don't blame them, okay? Don't blame them this morning. Maybe you've been in church a long time. But both of us, both groups, believe in a lot of things, don't you? You believe in a lot of stuff. Who here believes it's really, really good idea to get up early and exercise? Come on, let me see your hands. Who believes it's a good idea to get up early? Come on, who believes it's a good idea to get up early and exercise? How many of us do it? Well, you guys keep your hands down. You know, good job. So we need really, really chipper gals to get us to do things we know is good for us, right? Megan, you're just perfect for the job, I got to tell you. She's so perky. I just irritates me to death sometimes. And you left my podium a complete mess. What was the... It's all right, you did a good job. Thank you. How many of us believe that's a really, really good idea to tell those around us that we love them and how important they are? Do we do it enough? Maybe. Yeah, maybe you do. Maybe you do. Who here believes that deep down inside, deep, deep, deep down inside somewhere, and maybe it's buried by a lot of years of junk, crap, I don't know if we can say that in church, but stuff. But who here believes deep, deep, deep down inside that you were made for something great? That you were made for something great? That this life isn't all there is. The struggle and the frustration and the fear and the insecurity and the pride and the greed, that for some reason you know deep down inside this stuff shouldn't be in my life. That I was meant for something more, something greater. Do we act on that? And I would guarantee if you don't believe you were made for something greater, you used to. You used to believe. For somebody close to you that should have protected you, knocked it out of you. You see, we all have a lot of I believes. But for some reason, we don't live out those beliefs. Let's read Acts 24. Paul here has been taken by the authorities at this point. He's been jailed, and now he's been sent to Felix, a governor of that area, for trial. The Jewish leadership there are unhappy with him. And just to let you know, because it says some negative things about the Jewish people. Just to let you know if you're Jewish or no, I know and love Jews. It was talking about historically these people. Okay, it's not talking about Jewish people nowadays. It'd be like talking about the American soldiers that massacred Indians in the West. It was terrible. It was bad. It doesn't reflect on today's American soldiers. You get that? So just kind of clear that up. So 5 days later, verse 1, the high priest arrived with some of the Jewish elders and the lawyer Tertullus to present their case against Paul to the governor. When Paul was called in, Tertullus presented the charges against Paul in the following address to the governor. So what you have here, you have a Roman governor that the Jewish country was occupied by the Roman authorities. And so they answered to the Romans. So Rome had laws, really good laws, actually. And Paul was a Roman citizen. And as you were a citizen, you couldn't just be stoned or hung or beat without a trial. So a little bit like American justice. It isn't perfect, but probably better than most. And so that was kind of the case here too. So you have provided a long period of peace for us Jews, and with foresight have enacted reforms for us. For all this, your excellency, we are very grateful to you. But I don't want to bore you. He's a typical lawyer, wasn't he? Sweet talking, right? Any lawyers in here? No? Okay. What's the difference between a dead lawyer in the road and a dead skunk? Skid marks before the skunk. That's oh, poor lawyers. Skid marks before the skunk, yeah. Okay. We have found this man to be a troublemaker who is constantly stirring up riots among the Jews all over the world. He is a ringleader of the cult known as the Nazarenes. Furthermore, he was trying to desecrate the temple when we arrested him. So what they're talking about there is further back, Paul went into the temple, a Jewish temple, to offer sacrifices and to kind of try to get things right, kind of settle things with the Jewish people, because he had been going all over the world talking about Jesus, and they weren't happy about that. To them, they saw it, you can see they saw it as a cult, as something that was degrading to their Jewish religion. So naturally, they were unhappy with him. They were very, very zealous people. If you know what that word is, they were very eager to make sure to live out their faith perfectly. Okay, they were about willing to do anything to maintain that faith and that true, what they believed to be true doctrine. And they believed to be Paul to be talking about things that weren't true Jewish belief, and so they were after him for it. Furthermore, he was trying to desecrate the temple when we arrested him. You can find out the truth of our accusations by examining him yourself. Then the other Jews chimed in, declaring that everything Tertullus said was true. Now, the scholars assume that this is a very shortened version, that no lawyer is actually capable of speaking for 90 seconds only. So that's certainly a shortened version of his case he's presented. The governor then, verse 10, motioned for Paul to speak. Paul said, I know, sir, that you have been a judge of Jewish affairs for many years, so I gladly present my defense before you. You see how gracious Paul is? How gracious he is. Not like some Christians, leaders I know. He's gracious to this governor, and we'll touch base about him. But he wasn't really that great a guy at all, this governor. So he says, I'm gladly present my defense before you. You can quickly discover that I arrived in Jerusalem no more than 12 days ago to worship at the temple. My accusers never found me arguing with anyone in the temple, nor stirring up a riot in any synagogue or on the streets of the city. These men cannot prove the things they are accusing me of doing. But I admit that I follow the way. We'll come back to that. It was an early name for Christians. The early name for Christians, the way, which they call a cult. I worship the God of our ancestors, and I firmly believe the Jewish law and everything written in the prophets. I have the same hope in God that these men have, that he will raise both the righteous and the unrighteous. See, we believe everybody lives forever somewhere. Because of this, I always try to maintain a clear conscience before God and all the people. You see here, he finds as much common ground with his accusers as well. He's gracious to them too. Why? After several years away, I returned to Jerusalem with money to aid my people and to offer sacrifices to God. My accusers saw me in the temple as I was completing a purification ceremony. There was no crowd around me, no rioting, but some Jews from the province of Asia were there, and they ought to be here to bring charges if they have anything against me. Ask these men here what crime the Jewish High Council found me guilty of, except for the one time I shouted out, I am on trial before you today because I believe in the resurrection of the dead. At that point, Felix, who was quite familiar with the way, adjourned the hearing and said, wait till Lysias, the garrison commander, arrives. That was the Roman soldier that arrested Paul, and he was supposed to follow up and kind of give his side of the story. He says, let's wait for him to show up and see what he has to say. Then I will decide the case. He ordered an officer to keep Paul in custody, but to give him some freedom and allow his friends to visit him and take care of his needs. One thing Roman prisons didn't have is food. If you didn't have somebody bringing you food, you starved. So they weren't quite as good as our prisons. I think you can get a master's degree for free and have satellite TV, and well, this is what I'm told in our prison. So not quite as good. After a few days later, Felix came back with his wife Drusilla, who was Jewish. Sending for Paul, they listened as he told them about faith in Christ Jesus. As he reasoned with them about righteousness and self-control in the coming day of judgment, Felix became frightened. Go away for now, he replied. When it is more convenient, I will call for you again. Interesting, this powerful man became frightened by Paul's words. And it's interesting to note that Paul didn't say anything about the fact that he had taken Drusilla, she was a gorgeous Jewish, had taken, it was somebody else's wife, he took, forced them to divorce, married her, and booted his first wife. That he got to his position through extortion and bribery and conniving. He was actually a former slave. Felix was a former slave, Roman slave, gained his freedom, a smart guy obviously, gained his freedom and moved all the way up the ranks to now he's a governor of this territory, a Roman governor. So this guy was a wily, conniving, sharp, kind of unscrupulous guy. And Paul knew all that. I mean, it was common knowledge in this day. It'd be like common knowledge about many of our politicians. But Paul didn't blast him for any of that. He zeroed in on just a couple key things with Felix. So he says, I'll call for you again. He also hoped that Paul would bribe him. So he sent for him quite often and talked with him. A little insight into this guy. After 2 years, what? Obviously, Lysias never showed up. After 2 years went by this way, Felix was succeeded by Porcius Festus, And because Felix wanted to gain favor with the Jewish people, he left Paul in prison. Wow. Left him there to rot. So I have some questions. My first question is, a couple chapters back, Paul goes to Jerusalem. All the while going, he is being warned in city after city by other followers of the way, by other Christians, that they don't like you there, Paul. If you go to Jerusalem, you're going to get arrested. Don't go. He went. Why? Why did he go up to Jerusalem in the first place? Then, secondly, why did Paul go to the temple where he knew he would be seen? Temple was very much like a town square where the Jewish people came and went. It was a large structure with multiple buildings, a very public place. Why did he go there? And next, why did Paul go to prison? He knew, and he could have gotten away on a couple occasions, and he didn't. And then lastly, why didn't Paul bribe Felix to get out? Because he could have. There were probably people around him with money. That he could have gotten enough money and bribed this guy and got out of prison. Why didn't he do any of these things? These are the things I want to investigate and maybe answer some of our questions between belief and action. Why did Paul do some of the things he did? So we're going to investigate that, and I want to caution you on how great my sleuthing skills are. I'm not a big CSI, and my wife's laughing. She knows why. Kathy, our administrator, she's our front office right there. She calls me up a couple days ago. She says, there's a knife sticking in my window outside. I'm like, So I run up there. Sure enough, there's this big knife wedged into the outside of the window. So I go and grab it, and I'm like, sure enough, tips broke off, but they didn't. It looks like somebody trying to get in from the outside. So I take it, handle it, throw it in the garbage. I go home, I tell my wife about it. She's like, you touched it? You're never supposed to touch crime scene evidence. Don't you watch? Loves mysteries, loves all that stuff. I'm like, no, I didn't. A day later, I'm talking with Vince Wall. He's in my office, and I told him about it. He's like, you touched it? You're never supposed to touch crime scene evidence. You're supposed to take it to call the police and have them get fingerprints off of it. Anyway, so that gives you a little insight into my investigative prowess. So, take everything else I say from here with a grain of salt, all right? So here's my big idea. Here's from researching Paul. Here's the big idea. It's kind of a two-part big idea that if you come away with nothing else this morning, you come away with this memorized and pondering it, thinking about it, and not being able to get it out of your head. And my goal this morning is to say it so many times that you wake up in your sleep reciting it. All right? Firstly, I've come to the conclusion that faith is a life lived, not a belief held. That faith is a life lived, not a belief held. And that secondly, truth isn't a statement. It's a person. The truth isn't a statement, but it's a person. You see, today we're in the information age. It's all about information. Right? Who's got the most information has power. Right? So it's all about information. I think I have like 20 different Bibles, maybe 30. I've got several in my office, different translations, different versions. I've got several at home, and you likely have multiple Bibles in your home, whether you ever read them or not. You've got them. We've got tons of information. And with that comes tons of things to believe. But as we already concluded earlier, simple belief doesn't motivate us to be different, doesn't motivate us to change. So why did Paul do the things he did? And I believe it's because he was confident that his faith was his life lived, not just a belief that's up here. And that truth was a person, not a statement. You see, for the first 200 years minimum, for the first 200 years of the church, they didn't have the Bible. They didn't have it. They started collecting the writings of Paul and the other apostles, other leaders of the first church, those that were with Jesus, that started sharing their accounts. They started collecting those in letters, but some churches had some letters, some didn't. So they didn't have all this information. They didn't have all the information we have. But in a little over 200 years, Christianity, that at this stage in Acts is considered a minority cult in Judaism. I mean, you see this, right? This is a minority, small sect cult in Judaism, and this is about 45, 50 AD. By a little over 200 years, it was the dominant faith in the Roman Empire without the Bible. Wow! Wow! That's why I firmly believe that faith is a life lived, not belief. The truth isn't a statement, it's a person. And potentially we have missed it. You see, Acts 24, Paul winds up in jail and on trial. Why? Because he won't stop talking about a belief? No, because he won't stop talking about Jesus. Because he won't stop talking about Jesus and telling everybody, Jew and non-Jew alike, that this is the king of the universe. That unfortunately the Jewish leadership and the Roman government killed, but he rose from the dead. He rose from the dead, and now he's the king. There's a new king in town, and he was proclaiming it, and they didn't like that. That's what got him thrown in prison. You see, this way, we heard earlier that the way is what the early name for the church was. And it was the early title for Christians, and it emphasized that Jesus was the way to God. It emphasizes that the faith was a lifestyle, that it was a life lived, not just an arbitrary belief in our head. But it was a life lived, and that's why they called it the way. You see, when we switch from belief to a life, when we switch from belief to a life and a statement to a person, it'll change our lives. Paul, he was initially an enemy of the Christians, of the way. He was out putting them in prison, and he encountered Jesus on a road to Damascus. He was riding on his donkey, and Jesus came down out of heaven and knocked him off his donkey. And it didn't just change his belief, it changed his life. And he spent the rest of it serving and telling others about Jesus. So I think the problem is that many of us are unaware of what motivates us. We're unaware of what motivates us. Maybe we're aware of it, but we don't know how to change it. And I think that's where we get stuck. You can see people come to the church and come and hear a lot of information, and they come to believe a lot of things, but you see little life change. And I think it's because we're unaware of motivations, of what motivates us, or if we know what motivates us, how to change them. This is why we see New Year's resolutions fail, right? Who's ever succeeded at a New Year's resolution? No, I'm putting my hand. Oh, we got one. Okay, I'm putting my hand down. I don't think I've ever succeeded at a New Year's resolution. You see, what motivates us often is fear, pride, greed, security, lust. A lot of these things motivate us, and if you know they motivate you, you likely don't know what to do about it. you likely don't know what to do about it. And for those of us in church, unfortunately, because we didn't know what to do about these things driving us, we resorted to rules. You've maybe heard of this, right? I think even people that have never been in church know that if you ask them one thing about what is it to be a good Christian, in fact, I just read this. They asked just a street, what does it mean to be a good Christian? They said it's to follow a bunch of rules. Who gave them that idea? We did! Because we knew we had greed and lust and envy and ugly things that motivated us and drove us. And we knew there's somewhere in this big book that it said not to do those things, but we didn't know what to do about it. So he said, I know what, let's come up with a list of rules. That'll help. Who's ever been motivated by a list of rules? Nobody. Does a list of rules make you want to go run out and go to prison for Jesus? No. But we didn't know what else to do. So we made rules. Can't do that. The old phone on my father-in-law, he's a retired Assembly of God preacher. He was around in the old days. He said, when I was growing up, you couldn't smoke, drink, chew, or run with women who do. He was 20 years old, went into a movie theater for the first time in his life, and didn't remember a single thing about the movie. He was praying the whole time that if Jesus came back, he'd go to hell. Because it was against the rules. But he still went. See, rules never motivated any of us to change for very long. I spent much of my early life, I came to faith as a 12-year-old boy from a home of insanity and dysfunction like no other. And it was a great little church, but it was about the rules. So I found me a good wife who was really good at following rules and figured she'd help me follow them. We can guess how that worked out. 5 years into it, things weren't going so well. We were a mess because I was white-knuckling faith, trying to follow the rules. And I tell you what, you can, when you're like everything's clicking and life's going along good and there's no babies being born yet and you're getting good 8 hours of sleep and your job pays enough to pay your bills, it can look like following the rules works. It really can. Because for a few years it seemed to work and I felt pretty good. I had some Bible verses memorized. I can rattle off John 3:16, Romans 10, the Romans Road, Ephesians 10, 8, 9, and 10. I can rattle them off. I still can. I memorized them at like 20. And none of it helped me be a better person. All of these motivations still driving me. And when babies came along and finances got tight, and I started losing sleep, all of a sudden life started derailing. And it was spiraling out of control. And I didn't know what to do about it. I had learned by this point that I was driven by these things. Selfishness. With a newborn baby, I wasn't getting near the sex that I wanted from my wife. And that makes the 25-year-old guy really mad. And I know in the Bible it says that you're not supposed to, what's it say? You're not supposed to deny each other when you're married. She was exhausted and worn out and feeding, nursing sick babies all night long. I didn't care. Right? Ugliness started coming out of me. I'm just being honest. And the life spiraled. See, when we don't recognize what drives us, we resort to rules. And when the rules quit working and we recognize what drives us, we still don't know what to do about it. And frankly, this is where I'm not sure where to go with this. Because I'm not so sure I have it all figured out. But I know that Jesus does. That Jesus is that person. That he is truth. And that he calls me failures and foibles and selfishness and all to follow him. To live a life modeled after him. And so statements, true statements. Here's a true statement. We're all sinners and fall short of God's glory for us. Romans 3:23. We are all sinners and fall short of God's glory for us. It's a true statement. True statement. What do you do with it? I'll tell you, if you're all about the rules, you go get a sign on the street corner in poorly painted letters and say, "Sinners, you're going to hell." You've seen those signs? If you're all about the rules, that's what you go grab a sign. Church forever has been famous with taking truth bombs and living in these four walls and lobbing truth bombs out into the community. How did Jesus treat sinners? Loved them. How did Jesus? True statement, we're all sinners. Okay. How did Jesus treat us? He loved us so much, he died, did something that we could not do, took our death, paid our price. Instead of condemning the prostitute at the well in John 4, I encourage you to read. It's an amazing story of Jesus. But you see, as Christians, we can get all about the rules. We're all sinners, and forget how Jesus treated them. And if we get really good at following the rules, we can forget what a lousy, filthy sinner we are. And then pride comes in, and it is all downhill from there. Jesus loved them, loves us. Never condemned them. You know the only people Jesus condemned? Arrogant religious people. That's who he condemned. And he still loved them. They just knew he wouldn't waste his breath on them because they know it all. And they don't listen to anybody. Jesus included. Maybe you think you're junk. Maybe your dad, maybe your mom told you you were junk and never amount to nothing. Maybe that belief deep down inside that you were made for greatness died when you were really young. Jesus loves you. Jesus made you for his purpose, made you for his kingdom. All I know is this, guys. When you set aside the rules and start trying to look at what Jesus did and model that, life will change. Everybody that came in contact with Jesus and his love changed. I don't know if you know the stories about Zacchaeus. Zacchaeus was a wee little man was he. No? Sunday school song. He was a greedy, rotten, filthy rich tax collector. As soon as the love of Jesus flooded him, he freely gave back everything he had taken from people and doubled it. Changed his life completely. Peter, we know the famous denial of Peter, denied Jesus 3 times and the rooster crowed. Later on, Jesus restored him, said, Peter, I love you. I still have a mission. Doesn't matter what we've done. Doesn't matter who told you you were junk. Jesus, the King of the universe, says otherwise. And when we forget about the rules and start living close to Jesus, our lives will change. Our motivations will change. All I know that when I discovered God's unending love and grace for me, the greed and the selfishness and the pride started going away. You can ask my wife, it is not gone. And it won't be gone till I die or Jesus comes back and changes me. But it started going away. I started living for Him and loving others more than myself. More than myself. Galatians 5:22-23 says, "But the Holy Spirit, the Spirit of Jesus, produces this kind of fruit in our lives. Love, joy, joy." Most of us don't even know what that word feels like. Peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. When we start getting closer to Jesus, those things will start showing up in our lives. And the greed and the selfishness and the pride will start decreasing. See, Jesus' followers said that He had the words of life and that He was life itself. That He was life itself. See, we have a core value. Number one says Jesus is King. Jesus is King. But just believing that won't change anything until we start living like it. See, many areas of life that are hardest to live this truth are finances, family, marriage, work, addictions. Your relationships will start changing. Your addictions will start going away. Your work, you will find more joy in your work. When you start seeing Jesus as truth, when you start seeing a lifestyle as faith, not belief. See, we must all come to a place of confronting selfish rulers. Paul confronted Felix with Jesus. He confronted him with those things. We have work to do on our hearts. Our hearts are most likely full of selfishness and pride and arrogance. So we have to confront those. We have to recognize what motivates us. We have to. And then start following the rules. No. Start following Jesus. Start seeing how Jesus lived His life, how He treated people. And when we fail, remember how He treats us. That He loves us, that He forgives us, that He says, get back up. Get back up. Get back up. See, mature Christianity isn't living a perfect life. It's a short distance between failure and confession. The shorter the distance between failure and confession is what mature Christianity is. Not never failing. I mean, if you're in here hoping to get some pill that would help you just be perfect, sorry, don't have it. And if somebody tried to sell you one, they were a huckster. Maybe you're thinking right now, maybe you're new to this thing. Maybe you've not given your life to Jesus, even verbally, even in your head, and you're like, boy, if I give my life to Jesus, it looks like it'll cost me something. Yeah, it will. What will my brother-in-law think? I don't know about you, but that's what comes to my mind when I think about doing something that might seem foolish. What will my brother-in-law think? Don't tell Jason. Jesus will cost you something, but what he will give in return, love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, gentleness. I don't know what your brother-in-law will think, but I know what your wife will think. Would she like a more gentle husband, a more kind husband, a more loving husband? A husband who shows some self-control? I think she'd be pretty happy about that. Men. See, when we come to a place where faith is a life lived, not a belief held, and truth is a statement, isn't a statement, it's a person, we'll no longer see ourselves or others as junk. And love will become our goal. Love will become our goal. When we quit living life driven by fear, pride, greed, and security, and start living our life guided by Jesus, by his Spirit, and by love, things will change. If you've been in a church a long time and you've been white-knuckling it, let go. Open up those tired hands and start to trust Jesus. Maybe you haven't come to faith. I encourage you this morning. As we close, in fact, worship team, you can come. As we close, I'll pray a prayer, and you can pray that with me and start to put your trust in Jesus, in this man whom Paul declared the King of the universe. You see, Jesus gives us hope for the future like no other. He wants to take the junk and the pride and the arrogance and the evil out of your heart, the hardness out of your heart. And he wants to soften and give you a new heart that's soft, that loves, that forgives. Tell you people, what would our community look like if we start taking Jesus seriously and started forgiving for real? If we started going to people that we've really hurt and wounded and wronged and apologizing and meaning it and changing. It won't work with the rules. It won't work with just information. It will only work as we grow closer to Jesus. As we spend time together with each other, talking to him alone, which is called prayer. Reading his actions, his life in the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John is where the stories of Jesus' life are found. We will begin to change. See, Jesus gives us hope for the future. And he calls us to forget about the past. It's forgiven. And to look to the future. See, faith is a life lived, not a belief held. Truth isn't a statement. It's a person. Let's pray. Lord, we thank you. We thank you. Jesus, your love for us, oh, it knows no bound. Might we believe that this morning? Might we start living like that from this moment forward? And I just pray right now for my friends that maybe they've been in the faith for a long time and they've been white-knuckling it and doing their best to follow all the rules. God, I pray that they would just be able to turn to you, Jesus, to let go of their pride, to let go of their fear, and start to trust you for every area of their life. God, I pray for those in here that maybe haven't begun to follow you, haven't put their trust in you. And I pray for them. And in fact, if you're in here and you're that and you would like to pray this prayer, it's simply this: Jesus, today I will begin to trust you with my life. I know it will cost me something, but I know that you will forgive me of my past, my sin, and that you will treat me with love and kindness and gentleness, that you will take my hard heart and my fear and my anger and replace it with peace and joy.